I am Alma Walker, 61 years old, and the proud mother of my only son, Nathan. I always dreamed of the day I would watch him marry, imagining every beautiful detail. Instead, I got the shock of my life when I learned they had already exchanged vows without me. After years of believing Nathan and I were inseparable, hearing those cold words from my new daughter-in-law crushed something inside me. But when she later demanded money, I realized this betrayal ran deeper than I thought. If you are watching this, please let me know where you are tuning in from and subscribe for more stories about navigating complicated family relationships. My story begins long before that painful revelation. I became a widow 19 years ago when my husband Frank died suddenly of a heart attack at 50. One moment we were planning our retirement dreams, the next I was planning his funeral. Nathan was only 13, then a sensitive boy who idolized his father. Losing Frank left a gaping hole in both our lives, but it also forged an unbreakable bond between Nathan and me. I threw myself into being both parents for him. As a registered nurse, I picked up extra weekend and holiday shifts to ensure Nathan never felt financially disadvantaged. We managed without luxuries, but I made certain he had what he needed for school sports and eventually college. Those years were exhausting, but rewarding. I can still picture staying up until 2 a.m, helping him with science fair projects, cheering myself hoarse at his swim meets, and the pride I felt when he graduated high school as valedictorian. Nathan earned a partial scholarship to study computer science, and I withdrew from my modest savings to cover the rest. During those college years, he called me almost daily. We shared everything about his classes, his roommate challenges, his first serious girlfriend. When he graduated and landed a job as a software engineer at a respected tech company, I felt my sacrifices had been worthwhile. He had grown into a brilliant, kind-hearted young man with a promising future. I retired 2 years ago after 35 years in nursing. My retirement fund was adequate but not lavish. I had planned carefully, counting on my mortgage-free home and frugal lifestyle to carry me through my golden years. I looked forward to traveling occasionally, volunteering at the local hospital, and spending time with Nathan. About 18 months ago, Nathan called with excitement in his voice. He wanted me to meet someone special. That weekend, he brought Kelsey Jenkins to our traditional Sunday dinner. She was 27, strikingly beautiful, with sleek dark hair and designer clothes that looked expensive even to my untrained eye. She worked in marketing for a cosmetics company and spoke confidently about branding strategies and social media campaigns. I noticed immediately how she asked detailed questions about Nathan's salary company stock options and promotion timeline. Something about her interest in my son's financial prospects unsettled me, but I pushed those thoughts aside. Nathan seemed smitten, laughing at her jokes and holding her hand throughout dinner. After they left, I reminded myself not to be the stereotypical, overprotective mother. Nathan was a grown man capable of making his own choices. Over the next year, I saw them regularly, but never felt I truly knew Kelsey. She was unfailingly polite, but kept conversations superficial. When Nathan called 6 months ago to announce they were engaged, I was genuinely happy for him despite my reservations. I immediately offered to help plan the wedding, asking about dates, venues, and what kind of celebration they envisioned. Kelsey thanked me, but said they were still in the early stages of planning. Each time I brought up wedding details in the following weeks, she would smile pleasantly and change the subject. Nathan, always eager to please, would follow her conversational lead. I told myself they were just taking their time, that modern couples often had long engagements. Still, something felt wrong. I began to notice subtle changes in Nathan. He visited less frequently. Our twice-weekly phone calls dwindled to brief text messages. When we did speak, he seemed distracted and evasive. I wondered if work stress was affecting him, but whenever I asked, he insisted everything was fine. As weeks passed, my concerns grew. 3 times I invited Nathan and Kelsey for dinner, and 3 times they canceled at the last minute. Nathan had never been unreliable before. When I suggested meeting them for lunch near their apartment instead, Kelsey replied that their schedules were just too crazy right now. One Saturday afternoon, they did stop by unexpectedly. Nathan wanted to pick up some childhood mementos from the attic. While he was searching boxes, I overheard Kelsey on the phone in my kitchen. "No, we are just at his mother's house," she was saying in a hushed tone. "You know how controlling in-laws can be. Got to keep them thinking they matter." I pretended not to have heard when she returned, but her words stung deeply. During that same visit, Kelsey left her designer tote bag in my living room when she went to use the bathroom. I noticed several wedding magazines peeking out. When I casually mentioned seeing them later, suggesting we look through them together, Kelsey quickly said they were just for general ideas and that they hadn't made any decisions yet. Every attempt I made to be included in wedding discussions was deflected. "We are still figuring out the venue," or "we haven't settled on a date," became familiar responses. When I directly asked Nathan if they had made any progress, he became uncharacteristically defensive. "Mom, when we have news, you will be the first to know. Can you stop pushing?" His reaction shocked me. In all our years together, Nathan had never spoken to me that way. Later that night, I called Tony, Nathan's best friend since middle school. Tony had always been like a second son to me, spending countless holidays at our table when his own family situation was difficult. Surely he would know what was happening with wedding plans. "Hey, Alma," Tony said, sounding uncomfortable when I asked about the wedding. "I think you should talk directly to Nathan about all that. I do not want to get in the middle, you know." His evasiveness only increased my anxiety. If Tony, who would certainly be Nathan's best man, was being secretive, something was definitely wrong. Sleep became elusive as I worried. Had I somehow offended Kelsey? Was Nathan ashamed of his modest upbringing and trying to distance me from his new life? I had always been careful not to smother him to respect his independence while maintaining our close relationship. During a quick visit to drop off Nathan's favorite homemade cookies, I noticed several glossy venue brochures on their coffee table. One was for the Lakeside Manor, an exclusive waterfront property I knew was well beyond what Nathan could afford on his own. When I picked it up, Kelsey swiftly took it from my hand, saying it was just for inspiration, and they were looking at more reasonable options. The final red flag came when I called Nathan's office to surprise him with lunch. His colleague informed me he had taken a week off. Yet Nathan had texted me just that morning saying he was swamped at work and couldn't talk. That same day, I noticed Kelsey had posted on social media about big changes coming soon and exciting new chapters beginning. The posts were deliberately vague, garnering curious comments from friends that she responded to with cryptic emojis. My instincts screamed that I was being deliberately kept in the dark about something important. As a mother, I had developed a sixth sense about Nathan, and everything inside me was on high alert. After 3 days of unanswered calls, I decided to stop by Nathan and Kelsey's apartment unannounced. I justified the surprise visit by bringing a houseplant as a gift. When Nathan opened the door, his expression flickered between surprise and what looked unsettlingly like guilt. "Mom, what are you doing here?" The lack of warmth in his greeting was palpable. "I was worried when I didn't hear back from you," I said, stepping inside. "I thought I would check if everything is okay." Kelsey emerged from the bedroom, her face composed in a practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. They had clearly been unpacking shopping bags scattered around the living room filled with new household items. "Alma, what a surprise," Kelsey said, her tone suggesting it wasn't a pleasant one. We made awkward small talk about the weather and Nathan's work. Finally, after 20 minutes of stilted conversation, I gathered my courage and asked directly, "So have you two settled on a wedding date yet? I was hoping to request time off for any out-of-town relatives who might need to stay with me." The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever. Nathan stared at the floor. Then Kelsey's lips curved into what I can only describe as a satisfied smirk. "Oh, we got married yesterday," she said casually, as if informing me about a routine grocery trip. "Just a small ceremony, for special people." The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of their sofa to steady myself. "You got married yesterday." My voice sounded distant to my own ears. Nathan finally looked up, his expression a mix of shame and defiance. "It was a last-minute decision, Mom. We wanted something small." "I see." Those 2 words took all my strength to produce. Somehow I managed not to cry. Decades of nursing had taught me how to maintain composure in shocking situations. "Congratulations, then." Kelsey suggested I stay for dinner since I had come all this way. In a daze, I agreed. Throughout the painfully awkward meal, she scrolled through wedding photos on her phone, showing me images of a ceremony that looked anything but last minute. There was Kelsey, in an elegant white gown, her parents beaming beside her. Her 3 sisters served as bridesmaids in coordinating blue dresses. I saw Nathan's colleagues from work, Kelsey's extended family, and at least 20 friends I had never met. The venue was the Lakeside Manor from the brochure. There was a professional photographer, floral arrangements, a multi-tiered cake. This was a meticulously planned event from which I had been deliberately excluded. Not only was I missing from the photos, but also Nathan's childhood friends, his godfather, and the aunts and uncles who had helped raise him after his father died. None of the people who had shaped him into the man he had become were present on what should have been one of the most important days of his life. "It happened quickly," Nathan repeated weakly when he saw my expression. "We wanted something intimate." 50 guests is intimate. I couldn't help asking, my voice finally betraying emotion. "Well, intimate for us," Kelsey replied smoothly. I left as soon as I politely could. Twice on the drive home, I had to pull over because tears blurred my vision too severely to continue. The depth of the betrayal was almost physical in its pain. I had not just been excluded from a ceremony, I had been erased from my son's narrative. That night, lying awake in bed, I relived every sacrifice I had made for Nathan. The vacations never taken, so he could attend summer academic programs. The second job I took to pay for his braces. The countless nights I spent helping with homework after working 12-hour shifts. All the while, I had believed we shared an unbreakable bond. Now I wondered if it had all been a fantasy. The next morning, I received a text from Nathan. "Sorry it happened this way. We will explain everything soon." No call, just those 11 hollow words. A full week passed in painful silence. I moved through my days like a ghost, going through motions of normalcy while feeling completely untethered. Nathan sent occasional brief texts, checking if I was okay, but made no effort to visit or call. I tried twice to invite them to dinner, suggesting we could celebrate properly as a family, but Kelsey replied that they were still settling into married life and needed space. I found myself staring at old photographs, trying to pinpoint when I had lost my son. Had I been too overprotective? Too involved? Not involved enough? The questions circled endlessly, finding no resolution. On the 8th day, I called Marcus, another of Nathan's childhood friends. Unlike Tony, Marcus had always been straightforward. "Alma, I do not know what to say," he admitted after I explained what had happened. "I knew they were planning something, but I figured you would be there. Nathan borrowed $2,000 from me last month for what he called wedding expenses. I assumed you knew." This revelation sent me to my home office where I keep financial records. Nathan and I had maintained a joint emergency account since his college days. I had continued adding small amounts to it monthly, even after he became financially stable, seeing it as a safety net for his future. The most recent statement showed a $5,000 withdrawal 3 weeks earlier with no explanation. I tried calling Nathan to discuss this, but the call went to voicemail. My text asking about the withdrawal received no response. Later that day, I checked social media and found photos of Nathan and Kelsey on what appeared to be a honeymoon in Bali, staying at a luxury resort I knew was well beyond Nathan's normal spending habits. Exactly 1 week after I learned about the secret wedding, my phone rang with Kelsey's number. Hoping for an explanation, or perhaps even an apology, I answered immediately. "Alma, it's Kelsey." Her voice was brisk, businesslike. "I'm calling about the rent transfer." "What rent transfer?" I asked, genuinely confused. An impatient sigh came through the line. "For our apartment. Nathan said you agreed to pay our rent for the first year of marriage as a wedding gift. It's the 1st of the month, and the landlord is asking where the payment is. Did you set up the transfer yet?" I was speechless. No such agreement had ever been discussed. "We're in a bit of a tight spot." Kelsey continued, her tone suggesting this was entirely my fault. "We counted on that money for our monthly budget, especially after the wedding and honeymoon expenses." "Kelsey," I finally managed, "Nathan and I never discussed my paying your rent." "Well, he said you promised it months ago. We've been planning around it. The rent is $2,200 and it's already 3 days late. There will be fees." I struggled to process this bold manipulation. First excluded from their wedding, now expected to finance their lifestyle. "I need to speak with Nathan about this," I said. "He's in meetings all day," Kelsey replied quickly. "This really cannot wait, Alma. So did you transfer it or what?" I didn't answer Kelsey immediately. Instead, I told her I needed to check my accounts and would call back. This unexpected demand required careful consideration. My instinct was to help Nathan as I always had, but something felt deeply wrong. I called my sister Judith, who had always provided level-headed advice. After explaining everything, she was uncharacteristically blunt. "Alma, you're being manipulated. They excluded you from the wedding, but want access to your wallet. That's not how family works." Judith suggested I make inquiries before responding. Over the next 2 days, I had revealing conversations with several mutual friends. Carol, whose daughter attended college with Kelsey, mentioned that Kelsey had been bragging about securing financial support from her in-laws at a recent book club. Another friend whose son worked with Nathan reported overhearing Kelsey discussing how she had successfully managed the wedding to avoid unnecessary family drama. Most disturbing was my conversation with Peter, Nathan's roommate from college. "To be honest, Alma, we've all been worried about Nathan. Since he started dating Kelsey, he's dropped out of our fantasy football league, stopped coming to monthly game nights, and barely responds to group texts. When we do see him, she's always there monitoring his conversations." With Peter's help, I connected with other friends from Nathan's circle. A pattern emerged of Nathan being systematically isolated from long-term relationships. Several mentioned that Kelsey had criticized me to Nathan in their presence, calling me clingy and suggesting I had unhealthy attachment issues. Tony finally called me back after several messages. "I feel terrible about the wedding, Alma. Kelsey told us you had been invited but declined to attend because you disapproved of their relationship. Nathan was really hurt. I should have checked with you directly instead of believing her." Through these conversations, I also learned that Kelsey had significant credit card debt despite her designer wardrobe and luxury tastes. She had allegedly borrowed money from coworkers without repaying it and had once been asked to leave a shared apartment for failing to contribute to rent. Armed with this knowledge, I realized I needed to take a stand not just for my financial security, but for Nathan's well-being. If I gave in to this demand, it would establish a pattern of financial exploitation that might continue indefinitely. Still, I worried that refusing might permanently damage my relationship with Nathan. I drafted several responses trying to be firm without being hostile. I wanted to leave the door open for reconciliation while establishing clear boundaries. 3 days after her initial call, I called Kelsey back. "Finally," she answered, not bothering to hide her irritation. "The landlord is threatening eviction notices. Did you make the transfer?" "No, Kelsey, I didn't," I said calmly, "and I won't be paying your rent." "Excuse me." Her voice rose sharply. "I was not invited to be part of your marriage." I continued, keeping my voice steady. "So I won't be part of financing it. Nathan and I never discussed any rental payments, and I never made such a promise." "You can't do this to us." Kelsey's controlled facade cracked. "We're counting on that money Nathan said you promised." "I'm sorry if there was a misunderstanding, but I made no such promise. Nathan is welcome to call me directly if he wants to discuss this." "You're just bitter about not being at the wedding," she snapped. "That was Nathan's decision too, you know. He didn't want you there either." The accusation stung, but I held firm. "My decision about financial support is separate from my feelings about the wedding. I wish you both happiness, but your housing costs are your responsibility." "If you do this," Kelsey threatened, "don't expect to be part of our lives. No visits, no grandchildren, nothing. Is that what you want?" "What I want is a healthy relationship with my son based on mutual respect, not financial obligation," I replied. "My door is always open for that." She hung up without responding. That evening, I sent Nathan an email explaining my position. I expressed my continued love for him, but clarified that I would not be financially supporting their household. I invited him to meet privately to discuss rebuilding our relationship. The next day, I discovered another $3,000 withdrawal from our joint account. With a heavy heart, I went to the bank and removed my name and funds from the account. It was the first time in Nathan's adult life that I had withdrawn my financial support, and it felt like cutting a final thread between us. The consequences of my stand were immediate and painful. Nathan called the next morning more angry than I had ever heard him. "How could you do this to us?" he demanded. "We're newlyweds trying to start our life together, and you pull this selfish stunt." I tried to explain calmly that I had never agreed to pay their rent, but he wasn't listening. "Kelsey told me how cold you were to her," he continued. "She was right about you all along. You just can't stand not being the most important person in my life anymore." His words cut deep, but I maintained my resolve. "Nathan, I love you. That hasn't changed. But I won't be manipulated or made to feel obligated to support two working adults. When you're ready to talk reasonably, I'm here." "Don't expect to hear from me anytime soon," he said before hanging up. The silence that followed was deafening. Weeks passed without contact. I found myself jumping whenever the phone rang, hoping it might be Nathan, but it never was. I checked his social media occasionally and saw carefully curated images of newlywed bliss with captions about choosing your own family and leaving toxicity behind. During this painful period, I realized how much I had neglected my own friendships while focusing on Nathan. I reconnected with nursing colleagues, joined a book club, and volunteered at a local literacy program. Building a fuller life didn't erase the pain of Nathan's absence, but it helped me cope with the emptiness. About a month after our phone confrontation, I ran into Stephen, one of Nathan's colleagues, at the grocery store. After an awkward greeting, he mentioned that Nathan had been stressed at work lately. "Between us," Stephen said quietly, "I think they're having money trouble. Nathan's been bringing lunch from home and turned down our usual golf game twice, saying he couldn't afford it right now. That's not like him." Around the same time, I noticed Kelsey's social media had taken a darker turn. Without naming names, she posted about toxic family members and dealing with disappointment when people show their true colors. Her friends commented with supportive messages, clearly responding to a version of events where I was the villain. Just when I thought the situation couldn't get more complicated, I received an unexpected call from Patricia Jenkins, Kelsey's mother. We had met briefly at a dinner before the engagement, but hadn't spoken since. "Alma, I hope you don't mind me calling," Patricia began hesitantly. "I wanted to apologize for not reaching out about the wedding. Kelsey told us you had declined the invitation because you disapproved of their relationship." "That's not true," I said, trying to keep bitterness from my voice. "I was never invited or even told about the wedding until after it happened." The silence on the line spoke volumes. "Oh dear," Patricia finally said. "That's not what Kelsey told us. She said you and she had discussed it months ago." Our conversation revealed that Kelsey had been spinning different narratives to different people, creating conflicts where none existed. Patricia seemed genuinely distressed to learn how I had been treated. "Kelsey has always been strong-willed," she admitted, "but this goes beyond that. I'm so sorry, Alma." This conversation gave me a small measure of validation, but didn't repair the rift with Nathan. Still, I began to notice small cracks in the facade. Twice Nathan texted late at night asking how I was doing, though the conversations fizzled quickly. Once he called but hung up before I could answer. 2 months after the wedding revelation, I received a text from Nathan asking if he could borrow some money to get through a tight spot. When I gently asked for more details suggesting we meet to discuss it, he apologized and withdrew the request. Throughout this difficult time, I maintained clear boundaries while always emphasizing that my love for him remained unconditional. I consulted a therapist who specialized in family estrangement learning strategies to manage my grief while leaving the door open for reconciliation. The most unexpected development came in the form of an anonymous letter postmarked from Kelsey's workplace. "You don't know me," it began, "but I used to be friends with Kelsey. What she's doing to you and Nathan is the same thing she did to her ex-boyfriend's family. She isolated him, manufactured conflicts, then convinced him they needed financial gifts from his parents. When they finally refused, she left him. Be careful." I didn't know what to make of this letter, but it reinforced my commitment to maintaining boundaries, not just for my sake, but potentially for Nathan's as well. Exactly 2 months and 3 days after I learned about their secret wedding, Nathan showed up at my door unannounced. He looked tired, thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under his eyes. "Mom," he said simply, "can we talk?" That rainy Tuesday afternoon marked the beginning of a difficult but necessary healing process. Nathan sat at my kitchen table, the same place where he had done homework, celebrated birthdays, and shared countless meals throughout his life. This time he looked smaller, somehow diminished. "I don't even know where to start," he said, staring into the mug of coffee I had placed before him. "Wherever feels right," I replied, fighting the urge to reach for his hand. I knew this conversation needed to unfold on his terms. Nathan took a deep breath. "Things with Kelsey aren't what I thought they would be." His voice cracked slightly. "After the wedding and honeymoon, everything changed. She has these expectations about our lifestyle that I can't meet. We're drowning in credit card debt." Slowly, painfully, the full story emerged. Kelsey had orchestrated their entire relationship around financial aspirations. The hasty secret wedding had been designed to avoid scrutiny from those who knew Nathan best. She had convinced him that I would happily finance their first year of marriage, presenting it as a done deal. "She kept saying you had already promised," Nathan admitted, shame coloring his face. "When you refused, she was furious. She started saying terrible things about you, claiming you had always been jealous of her and wanted to sabotage our happiness." At first he had believed her narrative, especially when combined with his own guilt over excluding me from the wedding. But as their financial situation deteriorated, with Kelsey continuing to spend beyond their means while blaming others for their problems, Nathan began to see the manipulation for what it was. "Last week, I found receipts for jewelry and designer clothes she had hidden from me," he said. "When I confronted her, she claimed they were necessary for her professional image. We're 3 months behind on car payments, but she spent $800 on a handbag." I listened without judgment, offering neither criticism of Kelsey nor immediate financial rescue. Nathan needed to fully process the situation himself. "The worst part," he continued, "is realizing how I let her isolate me from everyone who truly cares about me. Tony tried to warn me, so did Marcus. I didn't listen." "Why did you exclude me from the wedding?" I finally asked the question that had haunted me for months. Nathan's eyes filled with tears. "Kelsey convinced me you would try to stop it. She said if we invited you, you would make a scene or try to talk me out of it. She kept pointing out little things you said or did, twisting them into evidence that you disapproved of her. Eventually, I started seeing everything through that lens." As we talked into the evening, Nathan revealed more about Kelsey's manipulative tactics. She had systematically isolated him, created artificial conflicts, and positioned herself as the only person truly on his side, all while laying groundwork to exploit his financial resources and connections. "I feel so stupid," he whispered. "How did I not see what was happening?" "Manipulation works precisely because it's hard to recognize when you're in the middle of it," I said gently, "especially when it comes from someone you love and trust." That first conversation didn't resolve everything, but it opened the door to healing. Nathan returned home that night to what he described as an increasingly tense living situation with Kelsey. We agreed to meet again in a few days, and I suggested he speak with my therapist, who specialized in helping people recognize manipulation patterns. Over the next several weeks, Nathan began the painful process of acknowledging how thoroughly he had been deceived. He discovered credit card accounts opened in his name without his knowledge. He learned that Kelsey had been telling colleagues at work that his wealthy family would soon be helping them buy a luxury condo. When Nathan began questioning these behaviors and refusing to ask me for more money, Kelsey's loving facade crumbled completely. She alternated between tearful pleas, claiming she would change, and vicious attacks on his character and family. She actually said that marrying me was a financial investment that hasn't paid off, Nathan told me during one of our increasingly frequent conversations. The pain in his voice was palpable, but there was also a growing clarity. 7 months after their secret wedding, Nathan moved out of their apartment and filed for separation. Kelsey's reaction was swift and vengeful. She told mutual friends that Nathan was mentally unstable and that I had manipulated him into leaving her. She demanded alimony despite their brief marriage, claiming she had sacrificed career opportunities to be with him. The divorce process was messy and painful, but throughout it all, Nathan and I slowly rebuilt our relationship. We began with weekly dinners, then added occasional weekend activities. We went to family therapy together, unpacking years of dynamics and learning healthier patterns of communication. I keep thinking about how differently things might have gone if I had just been honest with you from the beginning, Nathan said during one session. If I had brought Kelsey's financial expectations into the open instead of letting her operate in secret. We can't change the past, I reminded him, but we can learn from it. And learn we did. I worked on giving Nathan space to make his own decisions while maintaining appropriate boundaries. Nathan learned to recognize red flags in relationships and to value transparency above appeasing others. Together we acknowledged that love does not mean unquestioning financial support, and that healthy relationships thrive on honesty, not manipulation. As for my retirement security, I managed to rebuild it slowly. I took on part-time consulting work at the hospital and carefully restructured my investments. Nathan, once his divorce was finalized, insisted on repaying the money that had been withdrawn from our joint account, doing so in small, manageable installments. The experience changed us both. Nathan became more discerning about who he allowed into his life. I became more confident in setting and maintaining boundaries. Our relationship, tested by fire, emerged stronger, but also more realistic. Today, 2 years after that devastating wedding revelation, Nathan and I have a relationship built on mutual respect rather than dependency. He's dating again much more carefully this time, and recently introduced me to someone who seems genuinely kind and self-sufficient. As for me, I've found unexpected purpose in facilitating a support group for parents navigating similar situations. I share my story openly, helping others recognize manipulation tactics and establish healthy boundaries without closing the door on reconciliation. The most valuable lesson I learned through this ordeal is that unconditional love doesn't mean unconditional financial support or acceptance of mistreatment. Real love sometimes requires the courage to say no, to stand firm when it would be easier to give in. Most importantly, I learned that genuine family connections cannot be bought or sold. They can only be nurtured through respect, honesty, and mutual care. Has anyone else experienced manipulation like this within your family? I would love to hear your stories in the comments. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more real-life experiences and the lessons they've taught me. Share this with someone who might need to hear that setting boundaries is an act of love. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, true relationships don't come with price tags.